Hello friends, thank you for joining me for a video today on a very heartfelt topic, pun intended. So you've heard about the mind-body connection, but have you heard about the heart-brain connection? That's what I want to discuss with you because it's a pretty important topic and it's one of my passions to explore how what we think in our mindset and how we respond to stress impacts our physiology and our physical health. So just a quick overview of what we're going to be going through briefly in this video, and I want to remind you that there will be a link in the video description if you want to dive deeper into the details to the actual article that accompanies this video with some of the references as well as some of the tips and resources that I'm going to be discussing. So I want to start off with discussing a little bit about the biology of this connection between the brain and the heart and how stress is the interwoven factor. The psychology of the heart-brain. I want to talk about the psychological factors that influence heart health, the importance of social connection and its influence on cardiovascular risk, why we need to be mindful of heart health, and then finally some tips to support mind-heart care. I will be pointing to some previous references for you for that you can peruse through at your leisure. Okay, so let's get started. Let's start with the biology of the brain-heart. So in neurocardiology, this is where they study the interplay between the nervous system and the heart. And studies have revealed that various neurotransmitters, nerve signals, such as epinephrine and norepinephrine, and hormones such as cortisol, which is released during stress, can cause changes in heart physiology and function at a cellular level. Furthermore, it's been shown that the heart has been entrained with the nervous system. And if we look at things that they use in medicine for diagnostics, such as the electroencephalogram, the EEG, which measures heart wave electricity, and heart rate variability measures, we can see that this science is applied in medicine. And what it says is that a stressful trigger will act as a stimulus for the heart, and this is through our nervous system response. So in one review, which I referenced in the article, it summarized the effects of stress on the heart through this nervous system response. And the effects included changes in blood pressure, changes in blood lipids and blood clotting factors, heart rate and rhythm, and oxygenation to the heart. So for those of you who want to dive into all the details and all the nitty-gritties, I'll definitely have a link for you on the article that accompanies this video, and you can look into the cardiovascular section in the review of how stress affects every system in our body. What was interesting to me is the authors also reported on considerations to mitigate these consequences of the stress effects on the heart, and these include individual personal characteristics, including someone's resiliency and ability to cope with the stress, hormones, such as the fact that there was an established variation between women and men with heart disease risk, and that's believed to be related to the protective effects of estrogen. So this is why I focus so much on mind-body medicine and patient empowerment, right? Because if we start at the mind where stress perception starts and we have coping abilities to handle that, we can prevent many of these negative effects through our entrainment with the nervous system response. So that's a little bit of an overview of this stress-brain-heart link. Now I want to go into more about the psychology between this heart and brain link. So beyond the physiological mechanisms of the brain and heart, there's been a connection between psychology and heart biology, specifically certain mental health issues, stress, certain personality traits like pessimism. These have been associated with irregularities in heart rate and rhythm. They've been associated with risk for heart attack and risk for cardiovascular disease, blood pressure changes, inflammation, reduced blood flow in the heart, some of the things we talked about related to the stress effects. Now, a large body of data is also clearly linking psychological health with cardiovascular health. Now, this is even more than just hypertension and even high cholesterol, but it's also risks for heart attack and other cardiovascular diseases. It has actually spurred in 2021 the American Heart Association to issue a scientific statement that says that doctors should start paying attention to psychological health and ask that as a means to prevent cardiovascular disease. So ask about it to see, psychological health is actually a risk factor for heart health, and we need to be connecting the two. There's also been a release in 2022, so recent, when this video is being recorded, by the American Heart Association that also highlighted this research connecting the heart and the brain with risks of dementia with people that had more hypertension in life. There was risks associated with heart failure and dementia. There was risks with atrial fibrillation, which is a form of heart rhythm irregularity, as well with cognitive decline. And it was shown that cardiovascular heart disease was associated with a 40% increased risk of poor cognitive outcomes. So this isn't meant necessarily to scare you. It could actually be exciting that people who have been into mind, body, and stress relief really we're hitting the heart, right, as well. So it isn't just about brain and kind of this airy-fairy way to feel better and less stress, but it's really about doing things or self-care is imperative to your health. So that might relieve some of the guilt of taking the time out to go ahead and go for that 10-minute walk or deep breathe or practice that mindfulness training or just take some time for yourself, right? So let's look at so we went through a little bit about the stress brain heart link, and we talked about this connection between mental health. I want to talk a little bit about the psychological factors that are specifically that we want to look for with cardiovascular disease as well. So one of them is stress. There's also anxiety, depression, social isolation, and social support. The psychosocial work environment. So if you're in a very stressful work environment, that can impact your heart health. Acute and chronic life events, and personality type and hostility. When this review paper that I will again link to in the article that accompanies this video showed that the strongest connections between the brain and the heart were for stress, mental health, and relationships. And this makes sense because the impact of chronic unrelenting stress on the brain has been implicated in mental health issues, so it's not surprising that they're both factors and most likely interconnected with heart health. So what the authors found was that depression was an independent predictor of heart disease. So if you have depression, it is something for you to be aware of to treat your heart well, right? Anxiety, stress, lack of social support, and psychological work characteristics were also linked to coronary artery disease. It was inconsistent regarding hostility and type A behavior. And chronic life events is kind of hard to measure from the studies, but they do feel that they were linked. And I just want to go back. I don't want to scare you because just because there's an independent risk factor doesn't mean that if you have depression you're going to get a heart issue, right? But it does mean that it might be something that will enhance your risk. So you want to be extra special aware and extra special kind and gentle to yourself, to do some really good self-care and mindfulness practices and helping yourself alleviate the stress, and also really being adamant about your mental health, because it will affect your physical health. And I think that's the important lesson here, that everything's connected to everything else. So if you're struggling in one area, you want to make sure you get the support that you need. Now, I do want to dive into this strong role of social support. It's the #1 predictor for heart risk. So already if you're depressed but you're out seeing your friends, you might be alleviating some of that. But I think this is important because this is not only is a lack of social support associated with the occurrence of coronary heart disease, but it's also an independent risk factor for mortality. And interestingly, it's also been shown to be protective, right? So people who have good social support actually have less risk for hospitalization for heart issues if they're depressed, which is pretty cool. Okay, so these are some of the factors. We want to be mindful of our mental health with our heart health. We want to remember this link between stress in the brain and why we don't have to feel guilty about self-care and mindfulness practices, right? So let's just remember that today, even as I talk in 2022, cardiovascular disease is still the #1 cause of death in America. So being mindful, again, of our relationships, health, our emotional health, critical factors for heart health. And I think that one of the reasons heart disease is so prevalent in America is because we're focusing too narrowly on cardiovascular metabolic markers after the effect, and not looking at these aspects that brought us there. If we know stress can cause changes in lipid biomarkers, right, and we know social support can predict mortality rates for heart disease, those are big ways to move the needle that are not expensive and that everybody can start doing by themselves. So what are some ways that we can be mindful of this brain-heart health? So I just recorded a video, and it's on Mindset is Medicine, where I talk about the mindset, emotions, and spirituality for mind-body balance, and I will link that post in that video in this video description, because you will learn about the benefits of laughter on health, essential oils for mental health, the healing power of love, spirituality, mindset, and medicine. And it will also link you to some additional resources that you can do for minding your emotional health and your stress response to help you enhance your resiliency, not only make you more happy in life, but have a more joy-filled, healthy heart. I'd love to hear your feedback. I'd love for you to go ahead and check out all of the resources I have on my website, and also make sure you check out my new essential oils website, which is specifically dedicated to essential oils and specifically the products that I use with my clients and that I feel comfortable with using for me and my family. And also check out, again, my free resources and my courses that are up as well on essential oils. And I'm also going to be having another course pretty soon that'll be on this whole concept of mind-body medicine and bringing everything together. So I hope you have a wonderful day. I thank you for watching, and I'm excited to hear your responses and to see you again real soon. Take care.